Number tres presece? Widespread unease? What if the answer has nothing to do with misfortune, and everything to do with power? Power that was once sacred and then systematically buried. 13 is not unlucky by accident. It was made to be feared. Because beneath its surface lies a truth so ancient, so spiritually potent, that it threatened the very foundations of the systems that sought to suppress it. This is the number of the divine feminine, of lunar cycles, of death and rebirth, of transformation and cosmic wisdom. It is the number of the mysteries, the ones hidden in the shadows of temples, etched into the bones of forgotten goddesses, and encoded in the rituals of lost civilizations. And yet, it was cast out, demonized, wrapped in superstition. Why? In this video, we'll journey deep into the esoteric significance of the number 13. We'll explore its connection to sacred geometry and lunar magic, its role in goddess traditions and the mysteries of the feminine, and how its symbolic power was hidden intentionally for centuries. By the end, you'll understand why the ancients revered 13, and why reclaiming it today is an act of spiritual remembrance and empowerment. Because the number 13 isn't cursed. It's a key one that unlocks the door to a truth far older than fear. Long before the number 13 was linked to misfortune and superstition, it was a symbol of the sacred. Across many ancient cultures, 13 held a place of reverence, woven into the rhythms of the earth, the movements of the moon, and the divine feminine mysteries that governed birth, life, death, and rebirth. Let's begin with one of the most universal and ancient patterns of all, the lunar cycle. The moon takes approximately 29.5 days to complete a full cycle. Multiply this by 12, and you get 354 days short of a full solar year. But the lunar year is not 12 cycles. It is 13. 13 moon cycles in a single year. 13 full moons. 13 opportunities for renewal, reflection, and return to the intuitive self. And in many matriarchal cultures, this cycle was mirrored in the female body. The menstrual cycle, deeply attuned to the moon, was honored as a sacred rhythmon that mirrored nature itself. The number 13 became a symbol of feminine power, mystery, and connection to the cosmic womb. In ancient Egypt, the afterlife journey was said to have 12 gates, and beyond them, the 13th realm, the place of immortality and divine union. This number was not feared. It was the number of completion, of transformation beyond death, the return to source. The Maya, master astronomers and calendar keepers, revered 13 as a sacred number within their Tzolk'in calendar, which is based on a 13-20 matrix, 13 numbers and 20-day signs. This created a 260-day cycle used for divination and sacred timing. For them, 13 symbolized ascension, divine timing, and cosmic order. In Celtic Druidic tradition, the sacred tree calendar was built on 13 lunar months, each aligned with a specific tree and spiritual quality. Trees, revered as living wisdom keepers, carried the soul through the cycle of nature, death, and rebirth. Even the Templars, mystics and guardians of ancient secrets, were deeply associated with the number 13, and perhaps not coincidentally, it was on Friday the 13th in 1307 that the Templars were arrested and massacred, a calculated move by the Church and Crown to dismantle their growing influence and bury their secrets. So why did 13 fall from grace? Because as patriarchal systems solidified their control religiously, politically, culturally, they suppressed anything tied to the ancient feminine mysteries. The goddess was veiled, lunar wisdom dismissed, and numbers associated with intuitive power and inner knowing were cast into shadow. the number 12 became the standard. 12 hours on a clock, 12 months in a year, 12 zodiac signs, 12 disciples, the masculine, orderly, divisible 12. But 13? It did not fit. It was the one beyond the number that transcended structure. It was chaotic, feminine, magical, and so it was feared. What was once sacred became sinister. Not because it was dark, but because it held too much light. In the next section, we'll begin to decode the core symbolic meaning of the number 13. What does it truly represent in spiritual and mystical terms? Why does it trigger such resistance, and what happens when we embrace its energy once more? To truly grasp the hidden power of the number 13, we must move beyond its superficial associations and descend into its symbolic depths, because 13 does not represent chaos or bad luck. It represents transcendence. It is the number of transformation, the bridge between the finite and the infinite, the known and the mystery beyond. Let's start with the most fundamental esoteric structure. The number 12 symbolizes completion within structure. 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 hours of day and 12 of night. 12 disciples around a teacher. 12 months in a solar year. 12 forms a circle. It is the organized cosmos, the structure of creation, the wheel that turns with predictability and order. But 13 is the key that lies outside the circle. It does not fit. It breaks pattern. It is the hidden center, the unseen dimension, the place that the ancients called the void, the womb, the great beyond. 13 as the number of the goddess. Across ancient traditions, 13 is the number of the goddess in her full power. In Wicca and many modern pagan traditions, 13 is revered as the number of Esbat moon's full moon rituals celebrated throughout the year. These are the nights when practitioners commune with lunar forces, work magic, and align with intuitive cyclical power. In the Hebrew Kabbalistic tradition, the word for love, ahava, and the word for one, etched, both have a numerical value of 13, pointing to unity through love, and love as the highest divine expression. In the tarot, the 13th card is death, but not death as an end. It is death as transformation, the shedding of old identities, the dissolution of ego, the portal to spiritual rebirth. So we begin to see a pattern. 13 is not about destruction, it is about metamorphosis. It is the serpent shedding its skin, the phoenix rising from ash, the soul crossing the threshold into a higher octave of awareness. Sacred geometry and the 13th sphere. In sacred geometry, there is a profound pattern known as the fruit of lifea figure, made of 13 interconnected circles hidden within the flower of life. When the fruit of life is expanded, it forms the Metatron's cube, from which all platonic solids and geometrical patterns of the universe arise. This hidden 13th sphere represents the source point, the seed of divine intelligence, the very pattern behind all creation. It's no coincidence that the number that births sacred geometry, lunar cycles, divine feminine archetypes, and cosmic transformation has been deliberately erased or feared. It's because 13 reminds us that there is more beyond the visible, more beyond the matrix of control. It represents the awakened feminine, the intuitive, the non-linear, the spiral rather than the straight line. 13 as the cycle breaker, while 12 creates order, 13 invites evolution. It is the number of the initiated soul, the one who dares to step beyond societal structures, to pierce the veil, to question inherited beliefs, and to transform through experience. This is why 13 has long been linked to rebellion, secrecy, and danger. because, in its essence, it is the number of those who do not conform. In the next section, we'll explore even deeper. How 13 was encoded in ancient symbols and mystery schools, why secret societies revered it, and what happens spiritually when we align ourselves with its vibration.
Number 13. A hidden, guarded secret. What we'll uncover here is not merely symbolic, but energetic. Because when you align with the vibration of 13, you don't just remember ancient knowledge, you activate it within your own consciousness. 13 in the mystery schools and secret orders. The number 13 has long been revered within secret societies, including the Templars, the Rosicrucians, and the Freemasons, not as an omen of misfortune, but as a numerical key to higher initiation. In these circles, 13 was often hidden in plain sight. 12 initiates, Jaun, one master, 13. The full circle of transmission, 12 stages of alchemical transformation, Jaun. The 13th as completion through transcendence, 13 degrees in certain ancient initiation rites. The final one representing the death of ego and rebirth into spiritual sovereignty. This number marked those who had crossed the threshold, who had stepped beyond the world of appearances into the inner sanctum of wisdom. But knowledge, once dangerous to power structures, had to be veiled. And so 13 was cast into shadow. It became the witch's mark, the Sabbath count, the devil's number in Christianized lore. It was painted with superstition so that few would seek its truth. Because 13 awakens the inner rebel, the soul that dares to remember. The sacred feminine reemerges. At the heart of 13 lies the goddess, the divine feminine principle long repressed. She who is cyclic, intuitive, wild, and wise. She who bleeds in rhythm with the moon. She who births and transforms life not through conquest, but through alchemical presence. The suppression of 13 coincides precisely with the dismantling of goddess-centered cultures. As patriarchy rose, the calendar changed. The moon was divorced from timekeeping, the body from spirit, the mystical from the measurable. 13 became taboo because the feminine became taboo. Its restoration signals a return to wholeness. And this isn't about gender, it's about principles of consciousness. To integrate the energy of 13 is to reclaim your intuition over rigid logic, trust the spiral path instead of the linear, honor inner death as the gateway to spiritual rebirth, and embrace the mystery rather than the illusion of control. The cosmic meaning of 13. In numerology, 13 reduces to 4, 1, Jaun, 3 equals 4. The number of structure, foundation, and manifestation. But, unlike the static 4 of limitation, 13 brings transformation through structure. Think of it this way. 12 is the temple. 13 is the lightning bolt that strikes it, not to destroy, but to awaken. It reminds us that the truest foundation is built within, not upon societal expectations. That transformation is not an accident, but a divine pattern. It is said that those who carry the 13 frequency often walk paths of deep transformation. They may lose everything: identities, careers, relationships, not as punishment, but as preparation. Their soul signed up to be a code breaker, a veil lifter, a cycle ender. So if you see the number 13 appearing in your life in dreams, dates, addresses, or intuitive nudges, know this. You are being called. Called to remember what was hidden, to embody what was once feared, to rise as a carrier of the forgotten codes. In the next section, we'll explore how to work with the energy of 13 practical rituals, reflections, and subtle ways to align your life with its transformational power. The number 13 is not just an abstract symbol, it is a living energy. When you begin to work with it consciously, it activates change, heightens intuition, and invites you into deeper alignment with your soul's purpose. But this energy is not always gentle. It is the number of transformation, of death and rebirth, of the surrender required before the emergence of true power. So how do you work with 13 without being overwhelmed by it? Let's explore ways to anchor this energy into your life through practice, reflection, and sacred intention. 1. Tune into the lunar cycle. Since 13 is deeply tied to the 13 full moons in a lunar year, reconnecting with the moon is one of the most natural ways to reawaken this frequency. Practice. Begin tracking the phases of the moon, especially the new and full moons. Observe how your energy shifts with each phase. On the 13th day of the moon cycle, hold quiet space for inner reflection. This harmonizes your body with the ancient rhythms that 13 governs, and attunes your awareness to cyclical time, a core feminine principle. 2. Work with the tarot's death card in the tarot. The number 13 corresponds to the death card not as an ending, but as transformation. Exercise. Meditate with the death card if you have a tarot deck. Ask, what needs to be released so I may be reborn? Journal any answers, images, or emotions that arise. This helps you consciously invite change rather than resist it. 3. Create a cycle-breaking ritual. 13 is the number that ends old patterns and births new ones. If there is something in your life you're ready to release, an outdated belief, behavior, or fear, you can perform a simple ritual. Ritual. The 13 flame release. Light 13 candles. Tea lights, or small ones, work well. On a piece of paper, write down what you're ready to let go of. Read it aloud, then burn the paper with the 13th candle flame. Sit in silence and let the candles burn down while visualizing yourself stepping into a new phase. This ritual taps into the alchemical essence of 13, transmuting shadow into wisdom. 4. Integrate the power of 13 into your daily life. You can bring the energy of 13 into your environment in subtle but powerful ways. Wear jewelry with 13 beads or stones. Set intentions or goals in 13-day cycles. Repeat mantras or affirmations 13 times. Use 13-sided symbols, like the 13-circle fruit of life, in your altar or sacred space. Each time you do, you signal to the subconscious that you are ready to walk the spiral path of spiritual mastery. 5. Reflect on what 13 means to you. Ultimately, 13 is about sovereignty, spiritual self-rule. Ask yourself, where am I still afraid of change? What cycles am I being asked to complete? Where have I given up my power to avoid transformation? Then ask, where am I ready to reclaim it? Journal your answers. You'll likely find that what once felt like misfortune or fear is actually an invitation to something far greater. To align with 13 is to embrace a higher truth, that your power lies not in control, but in your capacity to let go, transform, and rise again wiser, freer, and more whole. In the final section, we'll reflect on the journey of reclaiming the number 13 and why doing so is not just an act of knowledge but of spiritual rebellion and remembrance. For centuries, the number 13 was wrapped in shadows, coated in superstition, and cast aside as a bearer of misfortune. But as we've uncovered together, that fear was not born from truth. It was born from suppression. Suppression of the sacred feminine, suppression of intuitive knowledge, suppression of transformation and spiritual sovereignty. 13 was hidden not because it was dangerous to the soul, but because it was dangerous to systems of control. It held within it the power to awaken, to liberate, and to initiate. It was a cosmic key, and those who held it were often feared, silenced, or erased. But now, the veil lifts. To reclaim the number 13 is to reclaim a part of yourself that was forgotten. It is to walk with the moon instead of the clock, to honor cycles instead of chasing timelines, to embrace change as sacred, not chaotic, and to remember that your spiritual path is not about fitting into the old structures. It's about becoming the one who transcends them. So ask yourself, where am I still avoiding the death of the old? Where am I ready to embrace the birth of the new? And am I willing to step into the vibration of 13 not as a number, but as a path? Because 13 isn't just an idea, it's a calling. And if you've heard it, if you've always felt a pull toward this mysterious number, you were likely meant to carry its frequency, not in fear but in remembrance. If this message stirred something within you, share your reflections in the comments. What does 13 mean to you now? Subscribe to unlock more esoteric truths, sacred symbols, and spiritual tools that empower your path of awakening. Because reclaiming 13 is not just numerologist's initiation, and once you remember the power behind what was hidden, you can never look at reality the same way again.